choosing ZBrush. So I found these screenshots that we would put the ZBrush on them and pass these images to our lighting TDs and say, hey, match this. And they're like, okay. So we were just basically teaching ourselves how to incorporate ZBrush and the maps into our texture program. This is actually his belly. And what we did is we, as a texture team, made a bunch of Z tools of fish and shells and sea life. And we would bring in just small sections of the model because our computers couldn't take more than, and ZBrush at that time couldn't take more than like 1.5 million polys before it would start to stutter. And so we broke up our models into very small pieces, brought in small sections, dropped them to the canvas, and then placed these Z tools on and pulled them up, and we had amazing maps that we would pass on to the texture artist. It's like a shoulder. We had to put ZBrush on all the clothing. This is a cape here. Another piece of the shoulder. These are his hands. You can see some of it was modeled in, and then the whole lot of it was just these Z tools that we projected on there. All the shoes, socks, and you can see how I labeled them like Kalenico pants. So when the TD got it, they were like, okay, I have to match this level for the displacement value. The arms, this is his leg. Another shoe, another shirt. So this is all one character. Even all the weapons, because they were covered in crusty sea life and everything had to be ZBrushed, the entire model. So here is, this is the model, or what I could bring into the current ZBrush that we have now. And I did a little sort of walkthrough of, okay, so I can stop this. A little walkthrough of how it looks now with some subsurface scattering, preview shader on there, and I thought this might be kind of cool just to see how it looks now. You can stop it, you can see all the detail. And at the time when we were doing these, we didn't realize how much of the characters would be seen, how dark they are. So we went to town. We like covered these guys, and there's sometimes 30 and 40 characters in one shot, and we just went crazy. We stuck as much stuff on these guys as possible. So that's as much as I could actually pull out from the archives. I couldn't get any of their clothing, but that could have been fun too, to assemble them all together. So that was a Kalenico. Here is, there he is in action. Let's do that again, see him again. Here's another, he's yelling, they're out of range! And the last one here is another character. You can see like every inch of these guys went through ZBrush, the gums, the teeth, the clothing. It was so much fun. But it was pretty scary because it was our first experience with this new software and getting it into the pipeline. But it proved extremely successful, and ILM won the Academy Award that year for visual effects. So we were very pleased, and we've embraced it on every film ever since. All right, I'm just gonna breeze through this guy really quickly because he's another guy I modeled in ZBrush, and he got no film time. So see graph, he's getting film time now. So here he is, this is Quentin's. He's the guy I really liked because he had an eel that lived inside his belly. And I think we had like 4 weeks to model him and 3 weeks to apply all the ZBrush and print out the maps and pass them on. And he was in a few shots, and the director, Gore Verbinski, wasn't too keen on his look, so unfortunately he never made it to the third movie. But he was my favorite, I liked him. Here's our turntables that we view at ILM. You can see the concept art on the left, and you can see that the head actually matches to the concept art, done by Crash McCreary, by the way. Matches pretty well. Here he is with the sort of dice game environment and the wet look on him. You can see how complex these characters are. Once again, even the weapons had to be ZBrushed. We made all these little barnacles, and this would take, I probably had like 20 minutes to bring in the geometry, res it up, and just throw these things on and spit them out. It was like so fun and so quick. It's almost like you couldn't do it badly, because even that looked good. Here's the eel. I did some blend shapes on him to make him breathe. Here's a blend shape that ran down his back to make the fins move. And here he is, stealing the show in the background. There he is. There's another little shot of him there. There you go, Quentin. You got some airtime. All right, Rango. So here are some characters I textured with ZBrush, and once again, invaluable. Every character, from head to toe, the wrinkles on the clothing, everything went in and out of ZBrush. And it gave a look to this film that was like none other. Like every inch of every character was like, had love and interest in it. It was so much fun. So here's a turntable of this guy. See if I can pull this up. So that's the art from Crash, obviously on the side. And we were given pretty good free rein as to how close we could get it. And I mean, it took a while to get in there and dig it out and stuff, but I think the result is fantastic. He went through a change, this guy. He had a little bit more of a human face to him, and the director thought maybe he needed to look more mole-like, so he pushed in his chin and pulled out his nose. Here's an earlier version of him. So here's the Z tool here. So I ZBrushed this guy right to the waist, because in the final scene of the film, which was actually cut from the screen version, but if you rent the DVD or the Blu-ray or buy it, you'll see that there's a shot where they're all on the beach and the camera does a really long pan. Well, he's in a toga, so you see his body, but for the real, I guess the real cut of the film, you don't see his body. But it was fun, sort of sculpting him out, and that was the old chin there. Once again, all the clothing. I made this map where I just painted on the canvas a bunch of wrinkles, and I didn't want it to look like those hand-painted sort of blobby wrinkles. I wanted like clothing pinches and sort of like valleys and stuff. So I took some time and I painted that and made that as an alpha. And that alpha is on all the characters that I do. You'll see it on the corners of the sleeves, on the back, and anything that makes it look like these characters slept in their clothes, perhaps, or something like that. And once again, like 20 minutes, put the alphas on there, drag them on there with just a regular brush, and then you can spit out the maps, and it did just such a great job. So here he is in action here. And he stands pretty close to the camera. Some of these characters, we didn't know how close they were going to be, and we were given X amount of time to work on them. And a lot of times, Gore thought the ones that we did really quickly were cute and funny, and he's like, "Oh, give that guy a close-up." And we're like, "Oh," so back into ZBrush and add more details, kind of revamp them up a little bit, and for the close-up. So I think pretty much all our characters were full resolution, and there's like probably 100 of them or something by the time, in the different variations. Beans, okay, so she was a challenge. She's a very unusual looking character. She probably was the most difficult to actually sort of find, if you will. Like, they went through many different concepts, and ugly beans, and really pretty beans, and pink lipped beans, and makeup beans, and darker, uglier beans. There were so many different versions. This is the final look that I remember when we were in dailies. This turntable came up, and Gore was like, "There's my beans, I found my beans." So it was a lot of work to find her. So here's a turntable. All the wrinkles done in ZBrush as well. Look, if you look on the lower left-hand side, you'll see a pink pale beans. That was an old concept when they thought maybe she could have lipstick. All right, so here's her Z tool. So I'll show you how I did these these scales. Each one, because I needed each scale to go into Photoshop for texturing, I needed them as an outline as well. So if I just painted them in ZBrush, it's going to be very difficult to find the where they ended and where they stopped. So what I did is I used the poly paint, where is it? And I took like a day and a half, and I actually designed hand by hand, and then I drew every little scale on her lips, all around her eyes. You can see where they sort of grow. But this way, I could convert that to a texture, bring that into Photoshop, and I could have an exact match of how these scales are. And I could also use this as a mask, so I could deform as an inflate, and then just do a nice smooth over, and I'd get those perfect scales. And it was a nice, clean way. It was a lot of work at the beginning, but it cut so many corners later on. And I did that for her whole body. She's another one that you never know how much you're going to see of her, so you might as well do the whole thing. And we had a lot of time for her, so. Here's a close-up. So she gets a lot of close-up screen time. So if you see at the bottom, she's wearing a brooch. That was even part of the storyline. Apparently she's wearing a brooch of her mother. So of course here's the Z tool of the wrinkles of her bodice. Oh, I'll get back to the brooch here. Let's get to the hands. So the hands were the same thing. I didn't just want to put a generic photograph of her scales, because once again, if it's a hero character, you never know how close these body parts are going to get to the camera. But you'll see, like, the scales are really clean and really tight because I used the poly paint first to design them all. Exported these images into Photoshop, and then like blurred and contrasted the sharp